I would like to begin by extending my sincere apologies once again to all affected commuters. The severe disruption to the East-West line on 25th September affected about 500,000 passenger journeys each day, out of 2.8 million daily train-based journeys, causing significant inconvenience to commuters. It also resulted in severe damage to rail infrastructure, which required extensive repairs over more than 5 days. We have done a comprehensive series of tests, including endurance tests, before resuming train services. And after the resumption of service, SMRT stepped up its checks as a precautionary measure. There's also a regular inspection regime in place for other rail segments, including for other MRT lines operated by SMRT and SBS Transit. Several members have asked about the root cause of the incident. We know what caused the lengthy disruption. The severity of this disruption was due to the extensive damage to the track and trackside equipment by the incident train. As to the root cause, including why the axle box dropped, as well as learning points to improve our responses and prevent future incidents, these are issues which the investigations will cover. As rail regulator, LTA has the necessary regulatory powers and technical knowledge to investigate serious rail incidents. LTA will conduct a thorough investigation to ascertain the root cause of the axle box failure. It will also examine the fault detection and incident handling procedures to determine if appropriate actions were taken. To supplement its investigations, LTA will be supported by an expert advisory panel chaired by Mr. Malcolm Dobell, former head of train systems for the London Underground, and comprising 5 other local and overseas experts. MOT's Transport Safety Investigation Bureau, TSIB, will also be conducting an independent safety investigation. I seek members' understanding that more details will be shared when the investigations are completed. We expect the investigations to be completed in the next few months, and the findings will be released publicly. LTA will mete out penalties if the investigations reveal lapses. Regardless of the investigation outcome, SMRT will bear the costs of providing the free bridging buses and regular bus services. The foregone fare revenue during the disruption and the repair works. This requirement applies to both rail operators should they encounter a disruption along their respective lines. As for Mr. Edward Chia's question about compensation for workers, LTA and SMRT staff that worked overtime will be given overtime payment accordingly. Let me start with the first generation KHI trains. Mr. Gerald Giam and Mr. Dennis Tan asked about their operations and maintenance. The structural integrity of the trains was assessed by an independent assessor in 2012, who concluded that the trains have a total service life of 38 years. The reliability of a train depends on several factors, and not only on its age alone. Trains that remain reliable can continue to be used if they have not exceeded their service life. Prior to 2016, all the trains were owned and operated by the rail operators. In 2016, LTA began taking ownership of rail operating assets as part of the transition to the new Rail Financing Framework, or NRFF. Under the NRFF, LTA is responsible for procuring and building up assets such as the train fleet, while rail operators are responsible for maintaining, deploying, and operating the assets. In 2018 and 2020, after discussions with SMRT, LTA purchased a total of 106 new R151 trains to replace the north-south and east-west lines' earliest generations of trains, including the KHI fleet. The delivery of these trains, however, was delayed by the COVID-19 pandemic. These trains have been arriving in batches after rigorous testing. The first batch of 3 trains was handed over to SMRT and put into service in June 2023. Since then, LTA has been progressively handing over new R151 trains to SMRT at a rate of about 2 trains per month. 34 R151 trains have been handed over to SMRT so far. The plan is to replace all the KHI trains with the new R151 trains by end 2026 before they reach their 38-year service mark. Train commuters exiting at stations between Boon Lay and Queenstown stations were not charged for their rail journeys. Bridging bus services and regular bus services along the stretch were also provided at no cost to commuters. SimplyGo has been processing refunds in cases where commuters were charged for 2 journeys instead of 1 due to them exceeding 45 minutes for transfers between train and bus services or between different bus services. Commuters may approach SimplyGo for assistance if they have specific queries about their fares. PTC had previously studied whether fare reviews should be linked to service levels and disruptions and decided not to adopt this approach, as there are other measures in place to ensure service standards are met. For service disruptions, LTA would establish the cause and accountability and mete out penalties where necessary. In addition, where operators do not meet reliability targets, they will also not receive payments under our incentive schemes. The purpose of the annual fare review exercise is to ensure that fares keep pace with changes in operating costs so that the public transport system remains financially sustainable. PTC would consider changes in cost drivers over the previous year based on the fare formula. Given the maximum allowable quantum of increase at 18.9% for this year's exercise due to the 15.6% balance carried over from last year, PTC decided to defer most of the maximum allowable fare quantum for this exercise and raise fares by 6% or less than 1/3 of the maximum quantum to ensure that fares remain affordable for commuters. Fares are collected for the entire public transport system, including buses and trains, to ensure that the public transport system remains financially sustainable. If our fares are not adjusted to reflect rising operating costs, the persistent shortfall would have a chronic impact on service quality and reliability over time. Or if we want to continue topping up the shortfall via government subsidies, it means that taxpayers would have to foot a higher bill.